can adjust it there.
We gotta be careful. I'm already going. Is it working? I think I hear something. Where's the mouse?
Test. Fly by night. I hate to bother you, but we're live there and you're walking. It's really loud. I feel like I'm in a pilot. Breaker.
All right, well, we did have some photos for you, but apparently it's not working.
So here is but that's that
Yeah.
one, we can't see it.
I won't be able to see when we're editing.
Sorry, guys.
How do I know when I go to the next slide?
Yeah, I guess you have to. What if do you have the same thing?
We have
Okay, so if you click on the,
You can just skip this.
yeah, I guess he needs to see that one through the box.
Well, if it's not working here anyway, we can run out of here.
It's the lid that's worked.
Does that mean we can cancel?
No. I'm not sitting in such a.
Okay, I guess we'll begin. We're going to run without our projectors, so is that too loud? Okay, so we're Aaron and Anissa from Countryside Acres. We have a bit of a YouTube channel, and we've been homesteading for, well, working our way to it, I guess, for many years. Yeah. So we live on Manitoulin Island now. We've been there for 3 years. That seems loud. Have an off-grid home, solar panels, all the animals, everything we need. So first of all, what is homesteading to us? It's all about self-sufficiency as much as possible. That family unity, low debt or no debt, and a sense of community. It's working together. So whatever you can't produce, getting it from other people around you. And I think in the last few years, we've seen a lot of people doing exactly that. So growing your own food, your own cheeses, milks, butter, soap, meat.
Yeah.
Pretty well covers it, I think.
Pretty much.
You running that?
I can do that.
Before Manitoulin, we've been all over the place, I guess.
Yeah.
We were out west for a while in Alberta for, 3 years? I ran a feedlot out there, and that's kind of where our interest started in producing our own food. We looked after 8,000 head of cattle, lots of drugs, hormones, antibiotics. We aborted all the cattle when they showed up.
Yeah, elaborate on that. What does that mean? Can you hear me? Yeah? Yeah. So elaborate on that.
Well, all the cattle on arrival, if with the diet that we fed them, they can't stay pregnant. They could kill them giving birth. So all cattle that show up get an abortion drug to kick out the calf before we start feeding them on a high grain diet. That diet consists of 98% grain by the time we're on a finishing diet, and we actually drug them in the feed to keep them from dying, basically, from the high grain diet.
Like
That's
an overload.
Really layman's terms, but.
Yeah.
And then they get 2 rounds of growth hormones in the ears, loads of antibiotics, and that's where the majority of your food comes from. So more and more we thought of just how unethical that is and how much nicer it looks when you're eating green grass out in the field somewhere. And our desire for better food kind of came out of that. And not that, I mean, a lot of people in that industry making, obviously they're living by it, but it just didn't seem right to us anymore.
Yeah. You touched on that one already a little bit, but
Yeah, a little bit. Absolutely loved the job and the area in southern Alberta. It was way too expensive for us to stay there and to buy our own land.
just
It was a
about,
good start.
yeah, we want to talk about. It wasn't just the feedlot you were talking about, that it was also the spraying. Like when we were in Alberta, they actually spray the crops with airplanes out there. So you would actually, it was like like an airplane.
Private air show.
Yeah, private air show that we would see these sprays come over the fields out there. we started really questioning, like, that's just so disgusting, right?
There's some
Like,
pictures on
we're
there.
breathing that in every day, right? And all the water in southern Alberta is chlorinated. So it all comes from the mountains, and then it's all chlorinated. Anybody even in the country drinks chlorinated water. You go to water stations, you pick up your water, it's treated. So you cannot get well water. Well, the odd person had a well out
We
there.
knew one person.
Yeah, but it's all chlorinated water out there, so it was very unhealthy. I had a lot of health issues drinking the chlorinated water out there, and that's where it really kind of stemmed from.
Not
was-
headaches.
Yeah,
But even the spraying, like they'd fly over the feedlot and spray for bugs in the feedlot. You got to breathe that in. It's not the healthiest thing, I don't think. In 2012, our daughter was born, perfectly healthy, and when we were weaning her, we put her on cow's milk, and then her health issues started. She would just lay on the floor lethargic, like basically she was dying,
Yeah.
and we couldn't figure out why.
yeah. After testing, the doctors thought she had leukemia, so we thought we were gonna lose her, so we prepared actually for that. And it ended up being pasteurized milk from the store. She couldn't digest the proteins from that milk. So you mentioned,
Yeah, I asked the doctor then, this is what you're telling me, if we fed her raw milk straight from the cow, then she would be okay. And of course, they couldn't legally tell us that, because the industry, or the whole health association would tell you have to pasteurize it, but raw milk is by far better.
yeah,
And that fixed all her issues. Did you cover that one? Oh, you're moving through pretty quick. What was that?
that was just the pasture.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, after 3 years there, we decided we wanted our own place. As much as I loved the job, even though I didn't agree with it all, I really loved doing the work and just the big farm combining, all the stuff out there. We wanted our own place, and that made us decide either to Northern Alberta or Northern Ontario. We couldn't afford Southern Ontario, and our family's all in Southern Ontario. So it was either come up to Northern Ontario, or some of my colleagues were going up to Northern Alberta to buy land, where it was still cheap. And some of the reasons for that, I guess, like as she touched on, there's no water in Southern Alberta. So even if we could afford to buy land, you're reliant on town water and the river water, the Old Man River, to water your crops. Or
Everything
your
in,
animals.
everything in southern Alberta, really. Like, if you think about it, it really opened our eyes because they have no trees, so you can't use for resources. They have no water supply, so they could easily shut down the water. Even the animals and the crops are all being watered, right, out there. There's just, they could literally shut down the water supply and you would be without.
Yep, that 8,000 head feedlot and everybody's feedlot, all the ponds, they have huge lakes and ponds in each feedlot, so that covered about 40 acres, the feedlot, and that gets filled with river water from the Old Man River. So you're super reliant on something else. For 3 months straight, there's no rain in the summertime, and it's not really the greatest place to homestead. So we ended up deciding to go to Ontario because our family's here. And what else to say there?
Well, one of the reasons too is we wanted to be self-sustaining, right? Like, we wanted to produce our own food, and we just realized it wasn't realistic where we were, right? So you kind of need water to grow a garden.
Yeah, it would.
I did that once. I was waiting. We grew up in southern Ontario. It rains, right? We don't have to water gardens very often down there. And I waited and I waited and I waited. Well, guess what? It was 3 months, and we finally got one little raindrop, and I was so excited. But by then, my garden was toast. So,
Reasons we went back to Ontario.
okay, we're heading back to Ontario now. We were in Alberta, now we're going back.
Yes, we
Yeah.
moved a few times. So the reasons we went here, better small animal markets. So Alberta doesn't have any auction barns. Part of homesteading, for us anyway, was raising small animals, and then of course you need an outlet for that. If you're not going to sell it for food, then you need to have some other way of getting rid of your pigs, your chickens, your goats, whatever it might be. And Ontario has a lot of auctions for that. Even here locally in Lister, you can sell, at least you used to be able to, I don't know if you still can. You can sell all those things. In Alberta, the only auction places is for cattle. All the sheep in Alberta and Saskatchewan all end up coming to Ontario markets. There are some feedlots now for sheep, but there wasn't back then. Same as goats, everything ends up here in Ontario. So it wasn't really, it didn't make sense for us to set up west.
Well, we looked at northern too, right? But again, the only place that was really affordable was way up north. And the same thing, they didn't have any markets up there. Edmonton was the only area for markets, really. And you couldn't live anywhere where it's, it was not affordable for us
Right.
at that time.
The other reason is for all the people that live here. If you want to sell something like a farm stand, you need people to sell to, which obviously Ontario has lots of. And Ontario happens to be a lot richer than most of the West, and so people have extra money. So again, if you're going to homestead and sell something, then it's kind of handy if your neighbors have enough money to buy your stuff. I miss something. Oh yeah, so that one there, we didn't know what Northern Ontario would be like. So instead of buying a farm, we bought a house. House is easy to sell again. Farms can sometimes take years to sell. And we actually bought a house in Elplick. That's where we picked up a house.
Of all places, eh?
Of all places, yeah. Kind of spun the globe. Fixed that all up. That's where I met a few people here.
Yeah.
And then sold that again to give us enough equity to buy a farm.
So that took us about 8 months.
So, there's pictures of that again too. It's not really homesteading related, but it brought us to our dream of being debt free and having a homestead. So once we sold that, then we started looking for another farm. We looked in the Kennebec area originally, and we've looked, actually North Bay we looked, Cochrane. Nothing quite felt right for a new home. But we had some things that we wanted on there, especially natural resources, being in southern Alberta, not having any water, not having any wood, not having any stone. It's all clay basically out there. There's a few things like that we wanted for building supplies or for heat, for water.
Yeah.
And also some open fields for pastures, hay, gardens, stuff like that. So we didn't end up finding that. As we were looking, we were actually offered a dairy farm just up the road here. Up the right direction?
I think so. Yeah.
Anyway, and we were offered a 300-acre farm there with milking, I think at the time, 250 goats.
Yeah.
Not homesteading again. It got us into larger agriculture. We decided to give it a go. It had great potential. And over the next 3 years, we completely renovated that place. Made it a profitable business, renovated the house, the barns. Absolutely loved it. It was fun. It was a small animal. I grew up on a cow dairy. You were more beef.
Yeah.
And so the goats, it was nice. It's something you can do as a family.
Yeah. For that sense, it was really nice because we could all hands on deck. We could be there and work together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there also, so for years already, I thought that the farming, it's too tough now. Like the building costs are high, your grain costs are high, your energy costs are high. So to raise animals isn't as profitable as it was 50 years ago or 80 years ago. And I kept thinking of ways if we could just raise them on grass, if you get cheap enough ground and just let them graze out there, then they're basically growing for free and then sell it, if you can get cheap enough dirt. And so the concept of raising pigs on grass was something I came up with. And there we actually got to try it. So we fenced off some ravines we couldn't use for anything else. And I don't remember how many we had, 5 or 10 sows.
I think, I
And
think
a
we
mower.
started with 10. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we ended up, it worked great. They loved it. The first generation rooted up a lot. The second generation was better at grazing. And then the third generation really, you'd watch them just graze grass. And then we sold the meat.
Yeah.
Much better quality.
Yeah, and you could really tell the difference, the type of meat. It tastes different, totally different.
Yeah, there's a guy down here I did talk to this morning who was raising grass as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they seemed a lot happier, obviously. They're not stuck in the barn in a enclosed.
Now, even in the middle of winter, I remember they'd be under a snowdrift.
Yeah.
You'd come there, bang the bottom of the pail for feed, and all of a sudden the snow starts to move, and out comes a pig. So we had a whole litter of pigs down there one time that we thought we lost, and they were all buried down there. They had straw and then snow on top.
There we kind of got into a bigger scale of gardening, right? Up until this point, we kind of put our hands and feel into gardening, but I wasn't very good at it. I'm still not very good at it, but you put seeds in, it grows, right? So we did
learn little tricks as we go.
Well, exactly, and a lot of research was done at this farm, searching, trying to figure out how to do things, right? We were obviously teaching ourselves, right? A lot of the dying arts were gone, our generation, so everything that we've been learning, we basically are teaching ourselves. So this is where we learn to kind of can and do a lot of that preserving and the bigger garden and that type of thing, as well as doing the meats and yeah, it's really too bad that we couldn't have the presentation going here.
Oh, you can come up for pictures later. That's another thing we did there a lot more was butchering. I had never butchered anything other than a chicken growing up. Your family did more
Yeah,
than
our
that.
family did.
Our food came, well, we had a garden, but the rest all came from grocery.
Well, even the concept, I remember saying to you, like, you could probably just cut your own meat. Like, it doesn't have to be pretty, right? Like, we just eat it. We chew it up and we eat it. It's not like it has to be pretty for our own consumption. He's like, oh, I don't know. And yeah, once now you got the hang of it. And
That's backtracking, I guess, but in Alberta there we did our first
Yeah.
pig. I had a Mexican Mennonite help me, and he took half the meat in exchange for doing it.
and the lard.
No, that was the second guy. So the second guy, he just wanted the lard, and I thought I was getting a sweet deal, because, I mean, what do I
Who
want
wants
this pig
lard?
fat for? Now we keep the lard.
Now we
obviously.
realize it's valuable.
So here too, we did a lot of butchering cows, pigs, raised them for meat.
Well, and another thing is back to the family oriented, right? Like we homeschool as well, so it's all family oriented. Like our children are all involved. We actually have a video when we lived in Saskatchewan that our children are all there processing the cows with us, right? So we're like our 2-year-olds pushing the meat down to the meat grinder, right? And it's just incredible watching them learn and grow together, right? It's amazing, and that's kind of what we were always envisioned in our mind, is that's what life should be like, you know, self-sustaining and family and togetherness, and they all learn and they grow and develop, right? So,
Yep, being able to work together. So the farm was very profitable. We did really well at it, but it wasn't really what we were looking for. We felt like we were building an earthly kingdom rather than focusing on our this more smaller scale and being close to debt-free or debt-free. We could easily manage that, but it just didn't seem like the right thing for us anymore. So we ended up selling it and moved to Saskatchewan instead.
yeah.
Spun the globe again.
Yeah, that's what I have here, spin the globe, and don't you love the realtor.ca.
So we ended up in Nipawin, Saskatchewan, which is, they call it northern Saskatchewan, but it's in the bottom 2/3, northeastern Saskatchewan in Manitoba, pretty close to Manitoba. Bought a nice property there. We looked at a bunch of different places and we ended up in that one. Had lots of trees, lots of resources, 160 acres. I think 120 was cleared.
Yeah.
So we could use, some of that for grain production. So a very ideal place. Blue skies, if anybody's ever been out west, that's one thing we love about out west is blue skies almost every day,
Oh, yeah.
unless it's raining. It's beautiful out there. So we had a nice home there. It didn't have any work to do this time, which we were getting kind of tired of all the rentals, so we bought that place and it didn't need
Yeah,
anything.
it was nice.
Nice shop, nice garage, nice house, and then the land was ready to go. We put fences into it. We finally were debt-free, no mortgage payments or equipment payments.
Yeah.
Everything was, perfect, sort of.
We didn't eat there a lot of meat.
Yeah, and in Saskatchewan, you can actually butcher your own meat and sell it without needing inspection,
Farm gate.
which was really nice. Now you can take it to town too, you just couldn't sell it to a restaurant.
Yeah, the thing with Saskatchewan is the economy, they were trying to boost it out there, so they really opened up a lot of different options for people out there. So there's people that actually have processing facilities on their yard, I guess, for milk, and
Yeah.
you can do eggs without having to have them checked. You can sell them at farmers markets. You can butcher your
It's
own
the
meat.
only province that I know that you can sell your milk.
Yeah. Well, no.
It had to be pasteurized.
One of the East Coast provinces.
Oh, they
can't
do
you?
too? Okay.
Yeah.
So we had looked into setting up a bit larger of a dairy, but all the processing equipment, all the pasteurizing equipment, it's just way too much money. We did do a lot of meat again. We got into dehydrating meats. We started canning meats out there. And we put in a huge garden again.
Yeah, that was my best location. That is where we figured out laying silage plastic down to kill the weeds. And you talk about a game changer. That was just like my best garden. For one, the plastic heats up the soil. So in Saskatchewan, you have a shorter growing season. Like you have a lot of sunlight, but you have a shorter growing season. So we put plastic down, silage plastic, and we just cut holes, put seeds in, and it was like night and day difference. I just kicked myself for not figuring that out so many years. Yeah, because it's the food that we got off of that garden, and it had never been a garden there before. So where we had picked a location for a garden, it had never been a garden. So you figure the soil would need a lot of building up. But we put that plastic down and it just thanked us, because I have a picture here and my peas are almost as tall as me. I know, I'm short. I know, but they're pretty tall. And cabbage, I had so many cabbage. Yeah, I didn't know what to do with it all. It was amazing. I've never had that kind of a garden.
Yeah, you got into more ferments and stuff out
Yeah,
there as well.
fermenting vegetables and yeah.
Everything over the last 15 years, it just keeps progressing as farther to where we are now, I guess. So we had all the resources. Everything was great there. One problem with Saskatchewan, that the entire province of Saskatchewan has a population that is less than the city of Ottawa. There's nobody there. And so again, to sell stuff to anybody, you need a buyer, and there's nobody buying anything. Plus, it was going through a real economic downturn. A lot of the money comes from the oil fields, or the tar sands in Alberta, oil fields. And that had really dried up at that time, so nobody had any money to buy anything. Then it's kind of hard to sell anything. And so although we were debt-free and we had all this stuff, you still need money. You got to buy shoes or pants or something once in a while, and you need an income. And it just wasn't there long term, unless you were, again, get into large agriculture. So we sold that again, and we were homeless once more, and made our way back to Ontario with no home. We had nothing, no ideas really. We looked around Powassan for a while, looking for a home. Nothing really fit there. It's a nice enough area, but there's a lot of city folk moving up. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that here.
No offense to anybody.
And a lot of their farms, they got little acreages cut off the front, and then people are living there that may one day complain about the smell of your manure or whatever it is. So that made us look at Manitoulin Island.
Well, and that was just by a fluke. We happened to say that we really enjoyed where we grew up, right? And we then, for some reason, we said, well, why don't we just go and have a look there? We were
we used to
originally,
camp there as well.
yeah, but we were originally never going to go there. That's not what our plan was at all.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also made a very unrealistic list, of everything that we wanted in a homestead. Running water, river, trees, maple trees. It's something out west you don't have any maple trees. So everything turns brown around the same time in the year, and it's kind of blah. And to have a maple with some red, some more colors in it.
I laugh because there's
something
like
we really missed.
one green month out in the prairies, and that's
Alberta.
July. Well, both. It's July because all the fields turn yellow.
Yeah.
It's July. That's only green and when you grow up in southern Ontario and everything's green like most of the time, it's
fall extends itself because
Yeah.
one tree turns and another one.
Yeah.
So, not homesteading again, but something we missed was the variety of trees. Some hilly terrain we wanted, some open fields. We wanted bush for firewood and for building things. We wanted minimum 100 acres. Didn't have to have a house. It would be fine if it did. Something we could work on and fix up, or build a brand new one. Access to markets, and just a nice location.
Yeah.
So I think we searched for 3 months or something.
Yeah, I think so. We did a lot of searching at that time.
Knocked on doors. We drove down a few people's laneways, knocked on doors, see if they wanted to sell. And that's how we ended up finding our land. There's a gentleman didn't want to sell his home farm, but had 200 acres of pasture land that he had, and got us to look at it.
Well, originally when we made an offer, actually, he said that he really wanted to sell it, so we made him an offer. And then right before we were gonna go to the lawyers, he said, no, I don't want to sell. And we were like, oh, really? Yeah, we were so disappointed in that. So disappointed.
Well, the moment we walked onto the land, it literally had everything.
Yeah.
It's got a ridge on it where we built our house, and then it slopes down into the
Yeah, we
open
didn't even have
fields.
to disagree where we're gonna build the house.
No, it was perfect. It has the river, it's got maple trees all around the house. The only thing that we thought it was missing was a maple bush, but at least it had 6 or 7 maples where we wanted to build the house. Year-round river, beautiful area, lots of traffic. We get tourists coming by constantly to sell stuff too. And then I think after we bought it, we actually found the maple bush.
Yeah, we had already bought it and then we were walking on it. We asked them because you get usually one walk around or something before it closes, right? So we camped there with the kids in a tent. And he happened to be just walking through on the 100 and realized...
Oh, it's a big cedar bush that I walked through.
Yeah, and then he got in and he was like, it was a big maple grove of over, 100 and some trees.
Yeah.
And we had no idea. We had no idea.
We
That
tapped
was-
185 this year, I think so.
Yeah, and that was the last thing on our list that we unrealistically made, right? That wasn't there, and we thought, we'll just accept it, that we got a few around the house or where we want to build a house. And then, yeah, 100 trees just appeared. It's kind of cool. Yeah.
So we carried on with all those things that we've learned The gardens, again, way bigger this time, so we could sell stuff.
Yeah.
All the plastic in the gardens. We cleared, so the land hadn't been used for probably 30 years. There's little brushes and trees growing up in the land. We
Yeah,
cleared
so
that
this
all
is
up.
bare land that we bought. There was nothing on it.
No, 200 acres
Yeah,
instead of 100.
yeah,
And it's just got a mix of everything. We have sand for building and pit run for laneways. We've got clay, the running water constantly, open pastures, bush, a variety of different trees.
wild strawberries.
Yeah, wild strawberries. There's apple trees, mature apple trees there. I don't know, am I missing anything there or not?
Well, the
It's
road
almost
access.
ideal place.
The road access was, we wanted privacy, like we wanted an area that people couldn't really see everything we were doing from the road, but then on the same sense, we wanted to be able to have road access to sell things if we wanted to, right? So it even had that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
So it worked out for everything, and yeah, we have an enormous amount of traffic. Like I said, every time the ferry, it's only in the ferry season, I guess, tourist season, but we can sell a lot of stuff
Yeah.
at the stand. A lot of meats we sell.
Yeah, slow down
Raise.
here.
We
Slow
wanna
down.
build.
Slow down.
So over the past 3 years, we've built a large home there, a shop, and a barn. Installed solar panels. Oh, the reason we wanted solar panels, so in Saskatchewan, our hydro bill, I think, was $800-900 a month for just the house. We did have a shop, but we didn't actually do any shop work. And that got us thinking, like, this is ridiculous. We need to,
Oh, yeah.
again, we're reliant on
Yeah,
something
they're-
else that we can't produce. And that's why we wanted to get into solar.
Yeah, yeah, they were getting robbed out there, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
So we set it up. I have no previous knowledge of it. Just YouTube can teach you a lot. And we set up a system and just kind of keep growing it as our needs go. So we have all of our lighting.
Yeah, so our house is, it's not a small house.
No, it's 4,000 square feet.
We built a 4,000 square foot home. It's got 6 bedrooms, and we are completely off grid. So the odd time on a cloudy day, we have to fire up a generator to fire up the system, like to
Yeah.
obviously boost the batteries. But we have a freezer on the system, and we have all lights, every room,
Yeah, and a well.
a well now.
And then obviously laptops, printers. We do homeschooling, so we use a printer a lot.
Yeah, yeah, so it's not like it's a small facility that we're, it's basically a normal home, right?
Yep.
And other than a cloudy day, we don't really notice, we forget actually that some people will tell us in town that the hydro was out because, oh, they were doing repairs, and we're like, oh, really? No idea.
No idea, yeah. Here we also added bees for honey. Again, part of being self-sufficiency, all the things that we use, we try not to use white sugar anymore and switch to honey. So rather than buying it, it'd be nice to produce our own. So we picked up a few hives last fall. Sheep, you always wanted sheep.
Yeah,
I
we
don't
got
know why
sheep.
she wants sheep, but she likes sheep.
Hey, they're better than goats.
I'm a
They
goat guy.
stay in the fence. I say that sheep are the new goat.
Yeah, and we continue with our pastured pork and cattle, and also raised a lot of meat birds on grass there as well. Something we have been hoping to do for a long time. Yeah, we do have a lot of problems with predators though. I don't know how many foxes and
Yeah, we fed the foxes the
raccoons
first year.
and skunks that I've shot over the last 3 years. What was the last one? The
Just
pictures?
pictures, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of wild. Okay, there's a picture there of wild mushrooms. There's a lot of mushrooms in the one bush. We don't know anything about that yet, but it would be nice to learn. Wild edibles. Built a stand at the road. What was that, last spring we put that up,
Yeah.
I think? And sell a load of produce from our,
So yeah, when we first put the stand up, well, we weren't originally, we knew they had access to the road, but we didn't realize how beneficial the access was. Our location is actually en route from the Chichimon on the island, if anybody knows. They have to take that to go past our property to get to the other side of the island. So we had no idea, because you have the highway, the main highway, so if they wanted to go to, say, Little Current, they would take the main highway. But if they wanted to go anywhere else on the island, they actually detour right past our, is the shortest route past our place. So during, obviously, the boat traffic, we had perfect access. And then we put a stand up there, and it was amazing. Our daughter ran it last year, and she did incredible.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. What else?
You got nothing?
Oh, I hadn't thought and I lost it.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, it's okay. So we did partner with another farm over by Sudbury, it's still northern Ontario, to sell all the stuff that we haven't yet been able to produce. Although we have talked about doing that, like strawberries. We have a bunch growing now, I guess.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
last year we didn't. And then what's the other thing? Raspberries. We have wild ones, but not enough to sell.
Right.
So other than the cows getting in your garden, it would
Yeah.
have been much better last year.
Yeah.
So in short, we finally reached our goal of self-sufficiency. If we go back to the earlier list of things that we wanted, family unity, self-sufficiency, I don't remember what else is on the list, low debt or no debt.
Yeah.
We've met all those goals. We have very little debt. We grow, I don't know what the percentage would be, but the vast majority of our food.
Well, just as an example, I wanted a pantry that, one thing I hated in a home was a basement. I hated having to go down into that dark, dungy basement, and you know, I was always petrified of basements, so I wanted a pantry, and I got that off my kitchen. How big is it?
18 by 60.
So it's basically a cold room, and it's packed full of canning. So it was a grocery store within our home, which was awesome.
Yep.
Right? We basically could
Well,
provide.
another thing you started
organic-
doing here too was eggs in line.
Yeah, water
glassing eggs.
glassing. Has anybody ever tried water glassing? Yeah, it's amazing. So we had water glass eggs for 2.5 years. I think they lasted in our,
Yep.
we just did the ice cream buckets. So you take the ice cream bucket and you put them in water with a lime solution. And as they can't be washed, you just put them in the solution. And we just, as they came out of the chicken coop, if they were clean, we just stuck them in this bucket with lime solution and filled the bucket up and filled the water over top. And as long as the water was over top of the eggs stayed good. And for 2.5 years, I was getting eggs out for baking and scrambled eggs and that type of things. And they tasted great.
The idea, though, of eating an egg that's been sitting on a countertop.
Yeah, it takes a lot of
for
mind
2
over
years,
matter to realize they're
it's,
still good.
It seems like a strange concept.
Yeah, but you couldn't do a dippy egg. Like, they would break apart at that point, but they smelled great. And that's how they used to do it years and years
Keep it
ago.
good,
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, anybody raising chickens, obviously, they don't lay as many in the wintertime, so. Canning meats, you did there as well, started pressure canning your meat.
Yeah, and even meals, right? People don't realize, like, a pressure canner it's completely cooked food, right? So my theory is that if you can buy it at the grocery store, you can basically can it in your pressure canner, right? So a lot of people are like, they don't want to pressure can like squash or pumpkins or any of that type of stuff because they're worried, what is it called? The food and, what do they call? The food regulator people, they have to,
Health and
FDA
safety.
or whatever that says the safety or whatever, they, if you can do it in the store, why can't you do it in your pressure canner, right? So like a lot of people won't even do a lot of things because they're worried about, oh, they say it's unsafe. Well, if you can buy it in the store in a can, you can buy it, you should be able to make it, right?
Yep.
So stews and
Like you said
soups
earlier,
and-
you smell it, you open it up. and-
yeah, any doubt, throw it out.
That's what you always used to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even then, you throw it to the pigs, you throw it to the chickens, right? I canned milk. When we had an abundance of milk, I used to can milk at galore, so like shelves and shelves of milk. And then we pull it out later and we make cheese with it, right? Or you make, got coffee creamers, or, the kids would drink it. Like, it was perfectly good to drink. It tasted great. But the concept of having that milk sit there in a jar on your shelf was kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
But once you got through that, then it was great.
Yeah, and we have plans for smokehouse, because there again, you're reliant on a freezer to store a lot of your meats that you don't can. So smokehouse was one of the next things on our list to get done. Then you can hang a ham up in a smokehouse for, I don't know. I don't think there's a limit to
Even
it,
that
guys.
concept of just putting a piece of meat, right, and just putting salt on a piece of meat and having it last, right? Like, that just in our minds, we've been brought up with germs are bad and culture is bad, and just even that thought process of
Yeah, that first time we did a pig again,
Again?
a minute ago, we had one hanging in the Quonset, and we ended up throwing it out because we were that. Yeah. what do you
yeah,
call
we
it?
were curing
didn't
it
know.
with salt. Now I look back and I'm like, how dumb were we? How wasteful, right?
We just
Like-
looked at it like it can't be good to eat. It's been hanging up here in this Quonset in the heat for the last 2
Like,
weeks.
I didn't want to get sick, right? It seems like such a waste.
So anyway, having reached all of our goals and being, like I said, I would say probably 90% of our food is produced at our place. Other than making clothes, we're basically self-sufficient, and we do have people around us that could make clothes.
I make the girls.
In the community at large, we are self-sufficient. That's where things get really interesting. We've decided to actually sell it all, and we don't even know where we're going yet. So
Surprise.
We've reached our goal, and we feel like we're being asked to let it all go. And so we just sold our dream. Not an easy decision. We spent a lot of time in prayer and thought over it. We're going to miss that place. And we're preparing ourselves for whatever God has in store for our lives next.
So, if you want to find out what we're doing, check us out on YouTube.
Yep.
And you can follow us there.
And prayers and notes of encouragement are always appreciated. Because we literally have no idea where we're going. Yet.
RV life.
Yeah, we will be traveling around in a motorhome, which we brought with us for the next, I don't know, until we find a home.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Sky's the limit.
So thanks everyone for listening. And if there's any questions, we can take those.
Yeah, not questions on the future. Just on the past.
Wow.
Countryside Acres Homestead. That's it? That's all? Thank you.
Unbelievable. So are you guys bringing your belonging? Like, that's a lot of stuff to move.
Sold everything that didn't fit in the motorhome.
So,
That's the attachment.
no. But, yeah, that can be cut out. But, so you mean like you guys have a motorhome here and you guys are
Thanks
not,
for joining us, guys. See you next time.
you guys are not driving back to Manitoulin? Like,